The moment Officer Ramirez told me I could be arrested inside my own kitchen, I honestly thought I was hallucinating. 30 strangers were in my backyard eating cake off paper plates. My beer was disappearing from the fridge like it was self-service, and someone had zip-tied a giant Happy 50th Cheryl banner to my deck railing. I kept blinking at the officer, trying to process how the hell any of this was my problem. And then it hit me. This wasn't just a rude neighbor issue. This was my HOA deciding they owned my backyard. All of it. I bought my townhome in Birchstone Meadows because it was quiet, predictable, and just boring enough to keep me sane. I'm Evan. I work remote in cybersecurity, and I like my life simple work. Swim, read, repeat. I didn't move here for community potlucks or HOA newsletters written like propaganda. I just wanted a bit of peace after long hours staring at code. The end unit property had a slightly bigger yard and a small in-ground pool the builder threw in to sweeten the deal, and that was all I needed. I wasn't the guy who made trouble. I wasn't the guy who wanted attention. I was the guy who nodded at neighbors, waved politely, and went on with my day. And then I met her. Cheryl Danvers, HOA president, suburban tyrant, and a walking Pinterest board of athleisure mom who runs everything. She introduced herself on my move-in day carrying a branded Birchstone Meadows wine tumbler and a printed binder of the CC&Rs like she expected me to autograph them. She spoke with that confident nasal tone of someone who has never been told no and doesn't plan to start hearing it now. "We're a real community here," she said, smiling like a dentist about to deliver bad news. "We have standards." I nodded mentally, filing her under a void. Smile politely. Escape quickly. For 8 peaceful months, I managed to stay off Cheryl's radar. I followed the rules trimmed. My hedges didn't paint my house neon pink or erect a 15-foot flamingo, pretty solid performance if you ask me. And then the universe decided I'd had too much peace. The clubhouse air conditioning died. To be fair, the unit looked older than half the people living in the neighborhood, but its timing was impeccable. Right when Cheryl was planning her big 50th birthday bash, DJ catering all her suburban disciples. Poof! The AC wheezed its last breath. Suddenly, the official HOA event of the summer had nowhere to go. I didn't know any of this at the time. All I saw was an email with the subject line, "Community request regarding your pool." Never trust an email with a smiley face from someone who doesn't smile in real life. The email was sugary sweet, overly enthusiastic, and aggressively friendly. "Hi, Evan. We've all loved seeing your pool. The board was wondering if you'd be open to letting us use your lovely yard for our community birthday celebration on the 14th. It would be great exposure and really help everyone get to know the new neighbor. Warmly, Cheryl." I stared at it for a full minute, confused about how letting dozens of people trample my backyard was exposure I needed. I responded politely. "Hey, Cheryl, appreciate you asking, but I'm not comfortable hosting a big event at my house. Hope the clubhouse gets sorted." Evan. I thought that was the end. It was the beginning of hell. 48 hours later, the violation letters began. 4 in 1 week. A flurry of envelopes shoved into my mailbox with phrases like non-compliant pool safety gate, improper exterior lighting, temperature, visible, unauthorized planter. It was a single tomato plant and failure to participate in community events, which isn't even a real offense. The fees totaled a ridiculous amount, and every letter ended with "further action will be taken." I spent hours emailing back with documentation proving I wasn't breaking any rules, but Cheryl escalated anyway. Then came the Facebook posts. "Some residents refuse to foster community values," she wrote with a passive-aggressive emoji that somehow felt violent. In the comments, neighbors joked about how my pool would be perfect for a party. Cheryl replied, "We're working on a solution," with another cursed winky face. 1 week before the party date, I came home to find a laminated sign zip-tied to my side gate, "Reserved HOA birthday event. Access required." My jaw literally dropped. I ripped the sign off, snapped a photo, and emailed Cheryl. "Remove my address from any event. You do not have permission to use my property. Anyone entering will be trespassing." Her reply came in under 90 seconds. The board voted unanimously to classify your pool as a shared amenity since it's visible from the sidewalk. As such, it falls under HOA jurisdiction for community use. I'm sure you don't want to start your time here with unnecessary conflict. I laughed out loud, one of those deranged, disbelieving laughs. You know, the kind where you realize the other person is genuinely unhinged. I responded with one line, that is not how property law works. But Cheryl wasn't operating in the realm of law. She was operating in the realm of I run this neighborhood and you're in my way. I assumed she was bluffing until the day of the party. At 3:17 p.m., while I was in the middle of a video call, my back door sensor chimed, then chimed again, then stayed open. I muted myself, got up, and walked toward the sound with an uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. When I opened the door, my brain short-circuited. My backyard was full of strangers. A cinder block wedged my gate open. People I'd never seen before were drinking around my pool like they owned it. Someone had set up a full bar on my patio, plugged into my exterior outlet. There was a DJ table blasting 90s pop, and in the center of everything, wearing a sash that said 50 and fierce and a tiara that looked like it came from a Dollar Tree monarchy, was Cheryl. She turned when she saw me, spread her arms dramatically, and shouted, "Evan, you made it. We thought you'd be difficult, but this is working out great." I felt my soul leave my body. "Get off my property," I said, my voice low and controlled in that scary way people use right before they snap. Cheryl waved dismissively. "Oh, don't be a Grinch. The board voted. This is a community event now." I pulled out my phone and said, "I'm calling the cops." She smirked. "I already did." That should have been my warning shot. But no amount of warning could have prepared me for the absolute circus that followed. 15 minutes later, 2 officers walked up the side gate, lights off, looks bored. Cheryl greeted them like they were old friends at a barbecue. "Hi, Dan. Hi, Miguel." Her voice was syrupy sweet, and I immediately felt my stomach drop. The way Officer Ramirez clapped her on the shoulder told me everything I needed to know. They were on her side. "This the guy?" Ramirez asked, nodding toward me. "Yes," Cheryl said quickly, putting on her best damsel-in-distress performance. "He's refusing to let us use the shared amenity space even though the HOA approved it. He's yelling at guests, threatening people. I'm worried it's escalating." I stared at her in pure disbelief. "This is my yard." Ramirez gave me a long, tired look like I was the one interrupting his weekend. "Sir, can we talk over here?" We stepped aside. Behind him, someone knocked over one of my planters, and I watched my poor tomato plant roll sadly across the grass. "This is my property," I repeated. "My deed, my fence, my gate. I didn't give permission." Ramirez sighed. "Look, you moved into an HOA neighborhood. Sometimes that means compromise. The HOA president says this is under their authority." I nearly choked. "Do you see a clubhouse? Do you see a sign that says community pool? This is my private fence, my private gate, my private everything." Officer Dan shifted awkwardly. "Do you have, paperwork?" "Yes," I snapped. "Inside. In my office. You know the room I was working in when the birthday cult broke into my yard." "Sir, calm down," Ramirez warned. Cheryl drifted closer again like a mosquito with lip gloss. "See? He's hostile. I told you." Ramirez rubbed his forehead. "Here's what's going to happen. They're going to wrap up by 9. You're going to stop confronting guests. If you keep escalating, I may have to treat you as the problem. Treat me as the problem. In my own backyard." I felt something collapse inside my chest. A quiet, exhausted collapse. I suddenly felt small, like a kid arguing with adults who'd already decided he was wrong before he opened his mouth. My throat tightened. For the first time, a horrible thought crept in. Is it me? Am I the difficult one? Should I have just said yes? Would this have been easier? It was a shameful moment. I felt stupid, alone, and completely powerless. But then something shifted. I looked at Ramirez. I looked at Cheryl giggling with a Prosecco flute. I looked at my yard full of people who broke in while I was working. And something inside me snapped back into place. A cold clarity. If these people weren't going to respect boundaries, then I'd attack from another angle entirely. "Fine," I said calmly, too calmly. "I'd like both your badge numbers and a copy of your incident report when this is over." Ramirez blinked. Why? Because when I file my complaint with Internal Affairs and the city attorney about police officers helping an HOA president trespass on private property, I want to spell your names right. The silence that followed was delicious. I walked back inside, shut the door, and let the chaos continue outside. Someone set off my security alarm trying to wander into my bedroom, but I didn't even flinch. I had shifted from emotional to analytical mode, the mode I knew best. Once the party finally died down, I went full cybersecurity analyst on the situation. I downloaded every camera angle, every clip of the gate being opened, every drunk stranger walking in, every moment the officers dismissed my property rights. I documented everything. And then I sent it all to the one person who terrifies bureaucrats more than any cop, HOA president or city official. My sister Lena, civil rights attorney, professional nightmare for anyone who abuses authority. Her text came back in all caps. Please tell me you want to sue everyone. I did. Over the next week, the universe spun 180 degrees. Lena drafted a letter so lethal it could have been used as a weapon. She cited trespass, civil rights violations, misuse of law enforcement, and potential municipal liability. She CC'd the police chief, the city attorney, the mayor, the HOA's insurance, and half the people who sign things in that town. 48 hours later, the police chief called me personally. That was how I ended up in a closed HOA emergency meeting where Cheryl looked like she was about to faint. The HOA attorney read from a stack of papers with the expression of a man regretting every career choice he'd ever made. Cheryl, he said, pinching the bridge of his nose, you had no legal authority to designate Mr. Park's yard as common space. Cheryl snapped, we're the HOA. We can classify areas as needed. No, he said firmly, you cannot vote someone's deeded property into being your party venue. Then Lena leaned forward, voice calm but sharp enough to cut steel. You weaponized law enforcement to violate my brother's rights. The city is taking this very seriously. Your insurance won't cover intentional misconduct. You could feel the panic thicken the air. Finally, it was my turn. I kept my voice steady. I want 3 things: a written apology to every homeowner, removal of every bogus violation you issued, and Cheryl resigns immediately. Cheryl exploded. Absolutely not. The attorney looked at her and said, if we don't do this, we lose coverage, we get sued, and half of us might lose our homes. You put us here. The board voted 4-1. Cheryl was the one. And just like that, Queen Cheryl of Birchstone Meadows was dethroned. The next morning, the HOA sent the apology letter. The police chief informed me that Officer Ramirez was suspended without pay and placed under mandatory retraining. Officer Dan received an official reprimand. The city even introduced a new policy clarifying that HOA presidents cannot dictate police response on private property. As for Cheryl, she tried to cling to power socially, but it was over. Moderators deleted her Facebook rants. Dispatchers refused her petty calls. Neighbors rolled their eyes when she walked by. Eventually, she sold her home and vanished from the community she once ruled with an iron manicure. And me, I went back to work, swim, read, repeat. But sometimes a new neighbor would ask about the incident. Is it true they called the cops because you wouldn't let them throw a birthday party at your house? I'd nod, flip a burger on the grill, and say, yeah. And just remember, if you're going to abuse power, don't do it in someone's backyard, covered by 3 security cameras and a civil rights attorney on speed dial. Moral of the story: boundaries only work if you defend them, and sometimes defending them means fighting back harder than the people trying to break them.